I'm here today with Scott McBride, one of the 10 candidates for the Vail Town Council. Hello, Scott.
Good afternoon.
So I want to keep this as a conversation.
Perfect.
So briefly, tell us about yourself.
Sure. I grew up in Minnesota. I've lived in Vail for 4 years. Been coming here to Vail since I was a child for the skiing. I've worked as a lawyer now as an adult for 25 years and lived in Chicago before we moved to Vail. And then what really has driven my interest in working on the town council is we've thoroughly enjoyed living in Vail. We love it. Wanted to see it continue to be the premier world destination as a ski resort. But I've had 12 years of experience on an HOA in Beaver Creek that really drove some of my interest and some of the issues that came up there.
So how much time per week have you budgeted for council work?
About 15 hours per week.
Okay. So here's your chance. Give me the quick elevator pitch why someone should vote for you.
Sure. You should vote for me because I care about the town of Vail. I want to see the interests of the residents of Vail be first and foremost dealt with. We've got a lot of issues that need to tackle, a lot of issues coming up in the next 5 years or so. And with my experience both as a lawyer and then also just my experience with a significant HOA, really have a passion to try and drive decisions that are best for the voters and not based on anyone's personal interest, and also not driven by any animus towards particular businesses, and including Vail Resorts.
So you said there's a lot of issues coming up. Just what's one of those issues?
Sure. I mean, one of the issues is to redo the Dobson Ice Arena.
What are you thinking about that?
Multi-use. There, any solution to the Dobson Ice Arena issues, it needs to address both the community and the economic impact. But one of the things on the community is what to deal with the ice time while the Dobson Ice Arena is being either refurbished or rebuilt. And then also we should maximize the use of that space. It's incredibly valuable space, but we should make sure that whatever comes of it, the space needs to be used for multiple purposes. So not just for hockey, but also for events and to the extent possible.
Have you you say you've lived in Vail for 4 years?
Correct.
Have you been politically active in the town before this run?
I have not been politically active in the town other than to show up and vote, or when necessary to vote by mail.
So just making sure, because we just finished a Vail sustainability plan. You weren't involved in that. There was a lot of public access.
I was not
that engagement.
I was not involved in
Cool. What neighborhood do you live in?
East Vail.
In East Vail. Do you have, is that the neighborhood that you've always lived in?
It is. I've lived within a 125-yard radius since we moved here 4 years ago.
Cool. Do you have many newcomers in the neighborhood?
So what I've noticed in East Vail since we moved here in August 2019 is really, I think when we moved here it was about 40% full-time residents, and I'd say now it's more like 60 to 65% full-time residents in East Vail. I haven't done a formal poll. There are definitely a lot of newcomers as of the last year and a half, though. The pandemic certainly shifted things around.
Yeah, a lot more lights staying on at night, I've noticed, in my neighborhood in West Vail.
Definitely true in East Vail as well.
So describe some of the newcomers to me. What are you seeing when, I don't know, do you have any pets?
We do. We have a dog.
So when you're out walking your dog,
yes,
and you see your neighbors, describe some of the newcomers and people that you've talked to.
And when you refer to newcomers, you're referring to people who live here full time, or just
people? Yeah.
Okay. Or people, or both.
Both, because to me at least, one of the things that's really special about Vail is part-time residents as well as full-time residents, and our guests are all members of the community.
Absolutely. So what I've noticed in terms of part-time residents is just, more and more folks from Denver that are, coming up for more significant periods of time. So they'll, they may work Monday from East Vail, what have you. And in terms of full-time residents, what we really see is people really putting resources into the homes. They're really building up the homes. Obviously, there's some tear downs in East Vail. People wanting a little bit more of the single family than the duplex, which most of the lots in East Vail are zoned as duplexes.
Yeah.
Regardless of how they're operated.
Yeah. What are you doing to get your message out? Besides something like this.
Sure. To get my message out, I'm having some signs made. I'm in touch with a lot of people in the community who've been here longer than 4 years, who know a little bit more of the ins and outs politically than I do, and getting in touch, having conversations with those folks, and finding out what's important to them, and also why it is that they care, and what their positions are, and most importantly the why. Because it's not just, I agree with this, I disagree with this. It's, okay, well, why is that true? What's good about that for the long-term in Vail?
Yep. What was the last Vail issue that you've been following that really got your blood boiling?
The last issue that probably got my blood boiling was probably Booth Heights, the Booth Heights parcel.
What about that got your blood boiling? What do you think?
So one of the things, look, I know there's been a lot of people involved. It's been a long time coming. I'm sure there was some, there are a lot of issues I'm not aware of with respect to it. But, one of the issues was Judge Dunkelman's observations with respect to, saying, hey, look, there was a failure of leadership here. There was, and what I view as trial, since I do work as a lawyer, trial is the punishment for unreasonable business people. And in this case, the trial is really the hearing at which you're deciding what the number should be in terms of the price tag. In my just based on everything I've read, based on what I've heard from Judge Dunkelman, it's really an issue that should have been resolved short of an actual hearing on the value. Now, with respect to condemnation, I get it. That's an issue that the town of Vail could not succeed unless it actually was able to condemn the property. That is an issue that I think should be reserved for the most extreme of cases. Property, whether owned by a company or an individual, should almost always remain with that person or company, and only in the rarest of circumstances should condemnation be available. But what got me going, what got my blood boiling was, hey, this really should have been resolved out of court, instead of giving it to the hands of the judge to say, okay, is the town of Vail going to owe $11 million or $23 million for this parcel? Now, I think the town of Vail has already won in some ways because they've got the parcel of land. They've got possession of it, and they've also won in some ways because the numbers, I think, are numbers that are skewed a little bit more that are favorable towards the town of Vail. It's not 11 million to 40 million; it's 11 to 23. So I think that's already a slight win. But it sure would have been nice if the parties would have been able to sit down and get that. Again, it takes two sides to agree. It only takes one person to be an unreasonable business person to make things go to trial. But in that situation, the people that win the most are the lawyers, and that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to get what's best for the town of Vail, and also Vail Resorts is obviously trying to get what's best for it. But that's it's just one constituent of many in the town.
So just to shift gears for a second, because we're talking blood boiling, what do you do to calm your blood from boiling in Vail during these 4 years now that you live in Vail?
Hikes. I'd love to hike. We have some beautiful hikes in East Vail, also in Vail proper as well with respect to Berry Picker. I love to go up. I love the waterfall hike in East Vail. But hikes and now that we've had a dog for a year, hikes with
what kind of dog?
Weimaraner.
Nice. They're wild.
He needs exercise, and so the hikes are a wonderful way to get out his energy because he will lay on a rug after a hike and just show me that I've been successful in getting some of the energy out of his body. It's
a beautiful thing that dogs show you that you succeeded right away.
Yes.
No ambiguity.
And then for 5 months a year, road bike rides up Vail Pass.
Nice.
That I love, and most of the time I'll only go to the cul-de-sac. That's plenty for me, especially from East Vail. And then, of course, in the winter, skiing, which I grew up loving in Minnesota and certainly enjoy now.
Perfect. So you mentioned earlier a bunch of issues coming up. One of those issues that keep coming up that I keep hearing about, we did go out and ask people what some of the questions that they want. Short-term rentals. Do you own any investment property in Vail besides the house you live in?
We do. It actually came upon us just somewhat by accident. When we were first renting from our friends in East Vail, about 4 months into a one-year rental, they decided to sell the property. And at the time, it worked out for us so that we were able to buy both sides of the duplex. They were selling both sides together. And then when we purchased a house across the street, we were living in it the whole time. And then when we moved across the street, we kept half the duplex and we moved into our house. So we do have, one deed that sometimes operates as a short-term rental. The last couple winters we've been doing as a long-term rental. But there are parts of the year where...
When you do a long-term rental, are you renting to a local or are you renting to someone just on a seasonal basis from out of town?
We started out, it was someone from Evergreen the first time we did it. And then the last 2 years, it's been employees who work in the Vail Valley. So whether it be for Vail Resorts in the town of Vail or in Beaver Creek.
Nice. And so what do you think of the current short-term rental regulations, and from the process of registering all the way through the cost of that, any changes that you would make and your general thoughts on that?
Right now, so I've had experience with short-term rental regulations, and right now I do believe that they strike a nice balance between the rights of homeowners next door. So for example, if you own half of a duplex, you need to send a notification to them that, hey, we might be renting this short term sometimes. It does a nice job with revenue generation with respect to taxes, and also to provide a balance, right, with respect to short-term rentals versus rentals of condos or hotels that people have typically rented in the past. It gives folks who are coming from out of town a slightly more variable option where they have different choices in terms of price. It also encourages the homeowners and landlords to keep the property up to date. So that's a benefit. But I think right now it strikes a pretty good balance between the interests of homeowners in the neighborhood, folks visiting town, and also the town of Vail residents who aren't the landlord.
We're coming to the end of our time together on this,
Yes.
although we will be together again on September 26th,
Wonderful.
you as well as all 9 candidates. So lots of issues. Those were your words, those are my words. Go ahead and pick one other issue, one of your priorities, and what you're looking to do with that issue and where you're looking to take the town of Vail, and then we'll wrap it up after that.
Sure, parking. So
I've heard of that one before, yes.
I came from Chicago where I lived for 21 years. Parking is an issue there. Parking's an issue is an issue in the town of Vail. And just, some of the things I think need to be done. We have some funds that have to be spent within about the next 6 to 7 years. I think the structure should be updated, whether that means rebuilding, refurbishing, what have you. But just take a look, if you will, and compare if you can drive into the parking structure at the Solaris and compare that to the 2 parking structures that we have, where I'd say the parking structure at Lions Head is a little more up to date, and a parking structure in Vail Village needs a little bit of love. And I think just to get some of those funds to that place to make it look so when you drive in, you think of Vail as this wonderful place to be, and the parking structure doesn't seem to match the beauty that we have on the streets and everywhere else, and just the sense of standing in the structure and seeing things move or feeling things move around. It doesn't match the standing in the Vail Village structure doesn't match the surroundings, the beautiful surroundings, and what you think of as a world-class ski resort. So I think a little bit of love needs to be should be put into that structure. We also have issues around local parking that have been displaced within the last year and a half. That's something that needs to be addressed, and we need a little bit more concrete solutions and a little more black and white resolution as to, okay, when can Town of Vail residents park in these structures, and or not just Town of Vail residents, but also employees. When can they park in these structures? And sometimes that's decided on a very tight basis.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And I will give you, as hard as it is for me, I'm going to give you the final words. And that is, I'm not going to tell you what to say, but this is your chance to reach as many people in as short and direct way as possible. So tell the voters why they should vote for you, and then we'll say goodbye.
Sounds great. Please vote for me because I will view things objectively. I will deal with Vail Resorts at an arm's length. I will not give them curry any favor with them, and I will fight for the issues that you'd like me to fight for. And my background as a lawyer, I do believe helps, because this role is twofold, right? We've got 25% or so is quasi-judicial, and then about 75% is more legislative. But that quasi-judicial part, the legal background, can really help to understand town council, and also to the town lawyer, and also to help deal with those issues. But we have a lot of important things coming up. We have some very strong candidates, so please vote for me.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.